Welcome. Well, you are at home with Jim and Joy, and you are an important part of our EWTN family. And we are delighted that you have welcomed us into your home. Now, you know, we would love to hear from you. So send us an email with a question or a comment to jimandjoy@ewtn.com. And today, our guest is Philip Campbell. He's a Catholic author. He's an educator, a historian. He's the author of a textbook called The Story of the Church from Pentecost to Modern Times. And this great book is available at EWTNRC.com. He was our guest yesterday, and we're going to have him again today. And he was sharing, he did such a good job, you know, talking about fake news and the bias as we learn in history and how things get spun and what we're told to believe and how we believe. And it's a scary time in which we live with it all.
It's changed a lot from we were born in the 50s and 60s and 70s, and there were big changes taking place then, but most of the texts at that time were pretty consistent regarding government and the founding of our government and Declaration. You knew what the Declaration of Independence was, the Constitution. It's amazing. They do the man on the street, various news shows, and they go out and they ask questions to people on the street, and they say, who fought in the Civil War? And people don't know. It's our own country in the North and the South. They might say the English against the French or the, you know, whatever it is. I think everything convoluted and misunderstood. And you wonder, like, well, what are people learning? What are they hearing? What are they not hearing? What's going on in our schools, especially our public schools? What are people being taught? And you know, as Philip said, a lot of it doesn't have so much. They might agree upon the dates and times that things take place. I have some questions about that, even if that's right. But he's saying, no, it's the slant, it's the bias, it's what they put in, it's what they want to emphasize, it's what people leave out. And man, that puts you in a really bad place. And that's one of the reasons why I think homeschooling is just, you know, rising up more and more and more. And people are just looking for fair text as much as you can do that. Maybe not objective, but fair as to history. And it sounds like Philip Campbell, who's written these 4 large books on the story of civilization, even before the time of Christ, and then the story of the church from Pentecost to the modern times, the historicity of the incarnation and of Christ establishing a church here on earth. You don't just get to make up your own church. We're a part of the church, but you know, did it really have a government, and what was going on? Were there really apostles? Did Christ really pass something on that he wants to continue, or is it just that I meet Jesus and I start my own church?
And Christianity began the day I met Jesus.
Yeah,
you know,
and, you know, bless their heart, because everybody's trying to deal with how you came to Christ, right? So it's not just one. There is only one Holy Catholic and Apostolic Church, but people are growing up in different traditions. So this is such an important, you know, subject and matter, and Philip has given us some great resources through TAN Publishing. So be equipped to live your faith, to pass on your faith at this juncture in history, and do not be afraid, because in a lot of ways we've been here before. It might be a little bit different how it works its way out, but it's always about the truth, and the truth will set you and nations free. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
Welcome back. Well, you're at home with Jim and Joy, and our guest today is Philip Campbell. He is a Catholic historian. He's the author of The Story of the Church, and it's available on EWTNRC.com. But Philip, you also did a series on civilization, right? And so you did a whole thing on the story of civilization with TAN Books. And so why don't you tell our family a little bit about that series?
Yeah, sure. Story of Civilization is a series of 4 books. It covers it covers like ancient Mesopotamia and Egypt all the way up through volume 4 is on U.S. history. So you got 3 volumes of world history up to the modern time, and then volume 4 specifically U.S. history. So it's meant for like elementary, middle school age, and it offers a comprehensive basic Western Civ curriculum that is meant to be cycled over 4 years. And it has all these neat components that come with it: audio drama, there's video streaming, lectures, activity books, test books, parent guides. So if you get the whole kit and caboodle, it's pretty comprehensive, good for all different ages, all sorts of learning types. So it's a very comprehensive Western Civ history program.
Excellent. Good.
So I guess the question then is, did you just write that all yourself based on what you thought, or what did you use to write it? Right? You know what I'm saying? Because this show is making me like, I want to know who's writing what and
Who's
where they
the
got the
author?
information from.
Yes.
So how do I know it's good stuff? Where did you go for it?
I made most of it up. No, well, you know, I've taught history for 10 years, and I drew on a lot of my own background studies, but you know, I had a broad library of historical texts at my disposal to use. It was fact-checked by the late Dr. Brendan McGuire, who was a doctor of history from Christendom, recently passed away. So it was combed over with a fine-tooth comb, and so it was quite a project. But you know, no history text is going to, especially something as broad as all of civilization, is going to be able to get everything in there. But it's very fair as far as these things go. And more importantly, for young people reading this, it is meant to engage them where they're at. You know, I've met so many people in my career that are like, oh, history, I love history, but man, I hated the class when I was in school, you know, because it was presented to them in a way that was dull.
Right.
Okay, so how do you present, let's stay with the story of civilization at this point, so that it's not dull, and yet it's accurate? So what's your way, technique, what is it to keep interest? How do you stay to the historicity, yet make it possibly even more interesting? What's your method?
Yeah, sure. Well, two ways. In Story of Civilization and also in Story of the Church, every chapter has a little historical fiction vignette, which kind of...
Historical fiction?
Historical fiction.
Do they go together, history and fiction? Okay.
Yeah, a historical fiction is a fictionalized story that takes place in a historical setting. So you're going to, the chapter will give the history, and then it'll say, for example, if we're talking about the Middle Ages, it's talking about knights and castles, what have you, and then it'll say, now let's take a look at what it might have looked like inside a medieval castle, and then there's a historical fiction story dealing with fictional or sometimes historical characters, what it looked like inside the castle. And the purpose of that is to use the historical information and paint a picture, capture the young person's imagination. Now I can visualize myself there. I can see what this is like. It paints a picture in their mind and engages that part of their thinking to make it more memorable. And the second thing I do is, even when I'm not doing historical fiction, I'm trying to draw out the narrative aspect of history, which in any given chapter, I'm trying to say, what's the essential story? What's the story I'm trying to communicate? Who are the main characters? What's the plot? And trying to present that information as a narrative that kids can follow along with. I mean, they follow along with superhero movies and with, you know, all sorts of other stuff. History is just a big series of stories. So kids love stories, and if you can really draw out that narrative aspect of it, then it makes it that much more easier for them to not only retain, engage, but also identify with and learn from the people that they're studying.
It's a little bit like what Jesus did.
Yeah.
He would tell these stories. He would tell parables. So they may or may not happen, but everybody got the story. They saw the people. They were engaged with the people, might know people like that, see themselves in the story.
Yes,
You know,
exactly.
these outcomes, you know, this is about you, right? Didn't he do that with, well, the prophet did that with David. You know, well, how could that happen? And he killed this person. It's you.
And I should, yeah, exactly. That's exactly the tried and true method. But I would also say what people particularly like about the series is the audio drama, which is basically a reading of the book with like voice acting and sound effects. So it makes it even more. And people will always say, "Oh, we listen to this whenever we drive. My kids beg to listen to it." So it really just brings it alive that much more.
Yeah, how beautiful.
So
and a part of the whole unveiling, you know, is bringing somebody in.
Yeah.
Just saying, you know, like you always think like, oh, if I lived in that time, how would I have participated? What kind of person would I be? Would I have been on the good side, the bad side?
Yeah.
You know, what would have happened to me?
Right.
Right? And so what a beautiful thing as you do that is you bring them in so you can see, to make it so relatable, so that there is this intrigue, there is this hunger and this thirst, not just for facts, but to say, I really understand what happened in that time and place.
Yeah, and the people in history, they're not just cartoon villains twirling their mustaches and heroes. A lot of times there's ethical dilemmas where it's unclear what side one would have been on, or where you can see both sides have a point. And I tried a lot of times in these books, in some of the stories, to bring out these these dilemma aspects of history where you can see that there's various things to be weighed and considered to get kids to think about complex, social problems, I guess.
Yeah. Well, with this particular book, the story of the church, and what's your target age group wise? Is it up to high school, or what is it?
This book's probably meant for 7th and 8th graders, the target audience.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you go over the triumphs and struggles of the early church, heroic stories of the martyrs, an army of saints who witnessed to Christ. You list some of the saints there, popes, who've helped shape church teaching through encyclicals and so on. Leo the 13th, Pius the 9th. Crusaders, oh, that's a no-no in terms of our world today.
Yeah.
To rightly understand the Crusades, maybe overdone in some cases, but not what the world tells us the Crusades are all about.
Right.
Marian apparitions, how events like the Protestant Reformation, the Avignon Papacy, and the Second Vatican Council affected the church and the world. It was interesting, as I was reading this through and going through it, and you were mentioning how important graphics are in seeing things, and I noticed that the first image that came up, maybe it's not the first, maybe it's the second, but yeah, was St. Peter crucified upside down.
Yeah.
And I was so impressed with that, and I was really grateful for that. And some people might say, well, I'm not getting that book if you're showing somebody crucified upside down. But it's like, no, that says so much, and that's what this is about.
The images in here are done by the artist Chris
Beautifully
Pellicano, who's a very talented artist. But in that image in particular, when I was much younger, I saw the old classic movie Quo Vadis with Peter Ustinov as Nero about the early Christians, and I didn't remember much about the movie, but they had the scene of Peter crucified upside down, and I remember as a young person just catching that and being like that image was so. It was kind of very profound and kind of seared into my memory, and I remember it was moving. And so when I wrote that chapter, I wrote a note to the artist and said I would like to see a picture of Peter crucified upside down, and it's a striking image.
It's beautiful. They almost look like etchings. It's really, really powerfully done. So the church in history, in time.
Yeah.
Speak about that. We listed some of the aspects that you emphasize. Why do you emphasize what you do? Is it just totally about history? Are you trying to help these young people see themselves as well in the historic church and extrapolate from them? What does it mean for me today? Or do they just do that themselves? Because you could really admire people, and I would want to be John the Baptist and St. Thomas More and so on. I'd rather go to heaven with my head off.
You pick two who had their heads cut off.
Right. This is what he's gonna
This is a phrase I always say. Yeah, Baptist, St. Thomas More. I guess was St. Paul decapitated? He may have been. Yeah. Okay. I'd rather go to heaven with my head off than to hell with it on.
Sure.
Okay. Now that's what I say.
Yeah.
I don't know if the time comes what I'm going to do, but I think that's what my admiration and wanting to know about the saints, and also knowing the communion of saints, that I could pray for them.
Yeah.
And maybe they weren't courageous. Well, courageous maybe they were all the time. Courage means that you might have fear but still do the right thing.
Yeah.
How does that get to our kids to say, you know what, this really happened, people did this, I need to be able to stand in the midst of my friends and this culture of this time for what I believe?
It's a very big question, Jim, but I think I can boil it down to 3 points. Number one, I tried with the book to tell the story of the internal development of the church, how the church grew and changed, and how its thinking developed over the centuries, and how it's preserved this one deposit of faith, but how it's unpacked it over the centuries. So try to help kids understand this is the church as a single tree that grows and unfolds and blossoms, so they understand the development of their own household of faith. Number two, to try to demonstrate how that story has impacted the world we live in. This focuses mainly on church history. It talks about political history insofar as the church gets entangled with it sometimes. So I wanted to demonstrate also these are positive contributions the church has made to civilization in terms of architecture, literature, political philosophy, whatever. And the third thing I've tried to accomplish here was what you were getting at, which is to inspire them with stories of heroic men and women who did great things for God and ended up as a consequence doing great things for the world, also so they can see that their own household of faith has all these wonderful heroes and saints that are worthy of imitation in so many different ways and places and times. So that's really the kind of the threefold angle that I took with the book.
Yeah. What do you, as we come in, as time goes by here, what do you see in terms of our own culture at this time in the United States of America, and what the church has offered, during these centuries? Maybe in particular, John Paul, his relationship with dictatorship, socialism, communism, those kind of things, and kind of an intrigue and an interest in our own country and in the West regarding socialism and communism. You just wonder, have people really studied history? Do they understand what this is about? And what are we facing, and what can we take from the church for this time that we're living in now? Maybe beauty, it may be culture, because you mentioned those things too. What do you say?
Yeah, well, without being too apocalyptic, I guess I would say that it's very analogous to the time of the fall of Rome, where kind of the prevailing political consensus that had been around for a long time has started to fracture and fall apart, and people are having to find their meaning and the pillar of their life elsewhere, or they're being forced to dig deeper because the kind of temporal certainties we've maybe taken for granted over time are fragmenting, and we're going to move into a new dark ages, probably not characterized by a lack of education or information like the first dark ages, but probably a glut of too much information and not knowing how to sort out what is relevant. And so I think the witness of the historical church is going to be even more important in the coming decades, as people are going to search for what is timeless, what is that sure foundation I can stand on in the midst of changing times. And so people are going to keep turning to this, and I think that despite we might see political things in our world change very much, I predict, my personal opinion, that there's going to be a kind of Catholic renaissance within our church. That's just me taking it on faith. But judging by how history has unfolded, Rome falls, but then you get in the generation after comes Saint Benedict, and he founds this order and then helps reconstitute civilization through Benedictine monasticism and really forges the identity of medieval Europe. I think we're going to see a transition akin to that.
Yeah. And that is a part of church history, isn't it? Yeah. And in some of the darkest times, the particular challenges of those times, that God always raises up a man, raises up a woman, raises up a religious order, raises up something that speaks right into that time, and that really, St. Francis or whoever it is, and we should expect that. So that's important to know our history, that even though it's unique to some degree in this time, I call it kind of like power tool times that they didn't have before, but it's the same mystery of iniquity, and the same mystery of the kingdom of God that's still at work.
And because the church is so timeless, or so vastly old compared to, say, the United States of America, the church very much functions like a time capsule. It takes the highest and best things in a culture that it's touched, and it passes them on, like all the ancient literature and patristic writings and stuff from Greece and Rome that passed on through the monasteries and the copyists into the Middle Ages, and whatever is good and holy and true in our own age that we've all contributed, that we throw into the church, that's, of course it's going to bear fruit and God will reward us, but even in a temporal sense, it's going to be preserved and passed on.
Yes. We're going to hold you over for the final segment. Hope very much that you're enjoying and being formed by this time with Philip Campbell and his wonderful book, The Story of the Church. We know who's going to prevail. It's Jesus Christ who will prevail even through his church, such as we are. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
Welcome back. We're at home with Jim and Joy. And if you are intrigued by all the things that Philip is sharing with us today, you could go to his website, philipcampbell.net. Now, Philip, tell our family, because many of our viewers at home are homeschoolers. Tell us about your homeschool connections and what history courses you have available there.
Yes, so for 10 years I've taught for Homeschool Connections, and so if you want to, anybody who's watching, if you want to have your kids take my history classes, you can go to Homeschool Connections online, and I have, I think I have 25 classes, different classes I've taught. Some of them I teach live every semester, but then even the classes I teach live, they get recorded, and then people can sign up for unlimited access. And for just, I think, like $33 a month or something like that, you get unlimited access to the whole treasury of online class, not just of myself, but all the other instructors. It's something like 200 plus different courses. So I have courses on every possible subject you can imagine. I have modern Middle East history. I have multiple classes on the Middle Ages, Greece, Rome, Egypt, 4 classes on American history, including an entire semester just dedicated from 1988 to 2016, just like modern history. So I've got a lot of classes, but if you want to see everything I have available, people can visit my website, philipcampbell.net, and then look on video classes, and there's a long list by subject of everything that I teach. So there's quite a few resources out there.
Great.
Excellent.
You know, we're hearing more and more, we're experiencing in our own life, in our families, where somebody have never homeschooled before.
Yeah.
Or maybe there's just families that are saying, well, we're not going to do homeschooling necessarily, but during the season of the year, over the summer, we're going to read some of this history together. And so is it your finding that there's this growing movement of interest in people coming to homeschooling or to find resources like this? Is it all COVID related, or is it culturally related, and people are saying, hey, we're being encroached upon in terms of true history and what we believe? What are you seeing in terms of people coming forward? Because I think this is a part of a sign of renewal.
Yeah. Homeschooling is exploding across the country for all the reasons you mentioned, with just a disillusionment with the public. There's a lack of like a consensus. Like you mentioned back in the 50s, whether it was public or parochial, there was kind of a consensus of what it meant to be an American and what the American experiment had to offer the world and the individual. There was kind of a cultural consensus about that. Now that's all fragmented. You have different interest groups, the rise of identity politics, everybody jostling for influence, and so a lot of people have said the public schools are no longer where I want my kids. I want to give them something more classical, something more aligned with our values, or just the academics are better. So you see a rise of homeschooling across the board within Catholicism. Also, because of the decline of parochial schools and a lot of closures, that option isn't as prevalent anymore, and the rise in cost of private education. So yeah, a lot of people are coming to homeschooling. I don't know the statistics, but just in my own time working in the homeschooling niche in this country, which has been, about 13 years now, it's just going up and up and up. And at Homeschool Connections, we're seeing just a constant, steady growth. But yeah, COVID bumped it up also. Hundreds and hundreds of new people coming to Homeschool Connections because of COVID. So I think it's just going to continue to increase.
I do too.
Yeah.
Philip, thank you so much. You're a gift to the church, and God has raised you up for such a time as this to help equip God's people to put back in joint that which is out of joint. Thank you so much. The Story of the Church by Philip Campbell. Get that and all of his great works. All together, we will build a new culture of life and marriage and the family, and the kingdoms of this world will become the kingdoms of our God and of his Christ. You're an important part of this EWTN family. You're never alone. You're always at home with Jim and with Joy. Bye now.